Well, happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to McDuff Lives and welcome to our Friday live chat with McDuff and Marcia. And we're glad that you are with us. Thanks for joining here. And if you want to participate in the chat, I recommend that you use the Rumble McDuff Lives channel. You can also do that on X and also on the Facebook page. YouTube, we will see, but it's not where the community is. So if you want to chat with everybody, join us up on Rumble at McDuff Lives.
Not where the free speech lives either.
Well, that's true. And Marcia Keith, thanks for joining me again.
Thank you.
This has been so
Good to be
much
here.
fun on Fridays to get together, and this is the kind of casual talk that I think can make a difference.
I think so. Yeah, it's fun to be here. It's fun to interact with all the folks out there and to talk about what's going on in the world and hear what others have to say.
Well, it's Friday again, as I said, and we usually kind of go through some of the highlights of the news and what everybody's been working on. I'll tell you, since my morning has been all about SACSA, the part of the Joint Chiefs of Staff that my dad, Thomas F. O'Loughlin Jr., worked for during his career at the Pentagon. And the interesting thing is that some information is getting out onto Grok, but Grok doesn't have anywhere near as much as I have.
Right.
And so I would have been confronting the question of, should I go into Grok and say, well, here's some more stuff you should know, or, look at this, or, you got to read this book. And I don't want to do it. I just think it's really premature because I don't think Grok has the verbal skills yet that's necessary to put things together in an honest way. Although it sounds professorial when it talks back to you. It sounds like it knows everything. And that's scary to me.
Exactly.
I don't like the idea of people relying on Grok. And,
and that's why.
Both with regard to my work with Adam Finnegan, where Grok screwed something up. And then again, with this question of SACSA and where did it come from? And, well, I'm working on that. It's part of my book about my dad, and which my dad's career was really anchored in for the last 10 years at McDuff, at SACSA at the Pentagon. And boy, so much secret stuff remains to be uncovered. And that's where I think we have some hope with FBI Director Kash Patel and
Keep our fingers
Pete
crossed.
Hegseth over at DOD. I just want to send him a copy of my dad's award from the Secretary Melvin Laird and say, look at this award and tell me why, what was behind it? What are the real facts that caused the Secretary of Defense to give my dad the
What was the year?
1971, March of 1971.
So it's been over 50 years. My gosh, you deserve to know.
Yeah, well, you and I together going to put together some correspondence and perhaps do FOIAs again and see if new stuff is coming out. There is new stuff coming out. The CIA issued lots of stuff this past year, which was helpful. I posted them myself on my Twitter feed. So over the past 4 or 5 months, if you want to scroll back through, you can find them. But things like this, the table of employment, who's working at what level. And we finally got my dad right square in there on the paperwork. It's, which was, I've been looking at this for over 10 years and it's great. Well, anyway, thanks everybody for being with me. I see we have a total of 16 people showing up on my little eyeball thing that tells you how many folks are watching. So you're all very, very welcome. And I don't see any chat yet.
Nope.
So we will just turn it over to Marcia.
Oh, thanks. Well, let's see. Daylight saving time. I noticed this morning I was listening to the radio and somebody referred to it as daylight saving time.
Yeah.
And I had to chuckle because 100 years ago, which is not quite right, but close. When I first started my career in radio in Raleigh, North Carolina, I worked for a large AM radio station, and there was this lovely, lovely woman named Evelyn Ramey. And Evelyn, every year, twice a year, would go out of her way to make sure that the entire staff knew that it's daylight saving time, not savings time.
I never knew that.
Yes, it's daylight saving time, which makes sense if you stop and think about it. But we've started calling it daylight savings time. Back it's in the 60s when it first started. So hard habit to break. But I had to laugh when I heard somebody refer to it as daylight saving time, because I thought Evelyn Ramey, God bless her, is cheering somewhere up in heaven that radio announcers are getting it right. So anyway, we spring forward on Sunday morning.
Wow, that's a resonance of her life that continues to have more and more ripples, and it'll
That's
just
right.
go forward until one day everybody will understand. Well, maybe not, because Elon Musk has put out a poll on X, and the question is, if we do away with daylight savings time, do you want the time to move an hour forward or an hour backwards?
I don't know. I'd have to stop and think that one through. I saw last year, I saw a wonderful chart that showed at regular time or daylight saving time where the sun is going to be throughout the year. And it was really interesting to stop and think that through and how it would affect one's life. And so I think, because, you don't like those dark mornings either. Remember when we were in Iceland? We went to Iceland in December. So we were there during the winter solstice on the shortest day of the year. And we'd get up in the morning and it would be pitch dark, and it would stay pitch dark until 10:30. And then the sun would come up and be up for 4 hours, and then it would set again. It was just so interesting to live that way for a week or however long it was that we were there. Yeah, I don't think I'd want to have that much dark in the morning. I like having the light in the morning.
Well, this is why I want to move to Iceland. However, we'll also have a summer place in the Canary Islands. I mean, a winter place in the Canary Islands. So,
okay.
So, we can live up in North Iceland where there'll be 20 to 24 hours of sun.
Now that I liked. Yeah.
In the summer. Yeah. That's why I took you to Akureyri, to get you.
Exactly. And that was in August. I mean, that was 2 months after the summer solstice. And that was unusual, but it was pleasant, and it wasn't hard to sleep.
Well, we both enjoyed Iceland very much. I recommend 4 nights around Christmas. You will have a wonderful time, and the food and the atmosphere is just it's beautiful. It's like being in a snow dome or something. Really,
it is. You're right. You're right. I enjoyed Iceland so much.
And hello, Sierra, up in Nova Scotia, a few hundred miles north of here, maybe even 1,000. But okay, so you're thawing. We thawed a couple of weeks ago, and then we got cold. It's cold again this morning, and I'm like, why do we have to do this? Let's warm up right now. I want 75 degrees tomorrow.
Well, it's not going to be tomorrow, but it's going to be within the week. You're going to see some nice warm 70s. But yes, this morning we got up and I looked at the thermometer and it was 35 outside, and that's just a little too cold for March.
Jonathan Edward Gibson, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are. You grill an AI against what you know for veracity and bias check. Don't treat it as a Google search replacement. Yeah, thank you so much. That's what well said.
Mm-hmm.
And Corky's checking in. He'll be in and out. Oh no, a 75-foot black walnut gotta go. Oh, that is so sad. Yeah, those are big. Those are big trees.
75 foot. I'm trying to imagine that.
And how big around is it? Because when I used to have some property, I had a big old black oak like that. And I don't know
Mm.
how, maybe 60 or 65 feet. It was huge though. And it was one of those trees that if you stretch both arms out and wrapped it around the trunk, you would hardly be
Mm-hmm.
different from a straight line. It's like that wide.
And you got big arms or long arms, arms that go on forever.
Yeah. Anyway, so all that is now part of National Harbor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I had such dreams for that place. It sat on a hill, had a great view all over. You could see Alexandria. You could see all the way up to Potomac to the Washington Monument. And yeah, I was going to build a castle. And I was going to have, observation towers, and people were going to pay me to see it. It was going to be, oh, well, like an
You build
Irish
it, they will
castle,
come. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to
Oh.
build this big gray stone,
Like
limestone
the
castle.
O'Loughlin Castle that we went to.
Exactly. Yeah, just like in Ireland.
Oh, that would have been fabulous there. You could have done a similar kind of thing, created this wonderful retreat that the current owner of the O'Loughlin Castle is building in County Clare.
Corky, I don't think you got a black oak there. I think you got a black walnut.
That's what he said.
Huh? Oh, God, I'm sorry, Corky. It's black walnut. Oh, I was talking about my black oak.
Oh.
I'm not sure about my head right now. I keep having little headaches from that fall when I hit the sidewalk, and maybe I need to read things a little more carefully. That's it.
That's because I was talking and you were reading and listening at the same time, and you were trying to pay attention to what I said. So you get credit for that.
Hey, Catherine is here. Hi, Catherine.
Hello, Catherine.
And Jennifer Miller. Hi, Jennifer. Got 8 inches of snow in the last 24 hours in Anza, California.
Wow. Well, we're going to assume that's up in the mountains.
It must be, or way up north. And here's Brightmore Dinosaur. Hello, Brightmore. Musk wants SpaceX to fix air traffic control. Why so many near misses at airports since Trump's election? Interesting.
Well, I'm not sure that there have been more.
Okay.
Have there? Or is it just they're getting reported? Because I did see that they come too close to each other regularly, and now they're changing some of the regulations about when the military can use that airspace versus the commercial traffic, and it's causing all kinds of backlogs at National Airport. I had read, but I don't know. But you know what? SpaceX had yet another of their starships explode. What was it, Thursday? Yeah, yesterday. So I'm not sure I want them fixing anything.
That's quite a good point. But those of us that are ex-addicts like me are aware of what Brightmore is saying, that he wants to use SpaceX to replace human traffic controllers. Of course, that really feeds into the technocracy agenda that we're all suspicious of and frightened about.
Yes.
But I think the interesting question is why so many near misses at airport, and then also that horrible collision between the military helicopter and the airliner.
Right.
And other things like this. Is it possible that people are causing these near misses in order to generate a swell of opinion in favor of SpaceX taking over? They will do things like that, especially big money, and especially now that we are quite aware that there's a lot of dark and bad money in our defense industry. So yeah, it's something to keep an eye on. Thanks, Brightmore. Catherine asks, how did I fall? I need to tell you, I'm doing just fine. I had a very severe fall about 4.5 weeks ago, in which I stupidly walked over to observe something and went up some stairs. And when I was leaving, I just missed the stair on the way down, and I tumbled forward. And unfortunately, there was a hard sidewalk right down below me, and so my hand jammed into the sidewalk. As you know, instinctively your arm goes out, but then my head whacked on the side of this right here on the side. But other than headaches and some tinnitus, which is kind of irritating, I haven't really been inconvenienced too much with it.
Well,
and then of course
yeah,
taking
the
care of
arm.
my wrist, which is now in a soft cast, and going to start occupational therapy next week. So, but no worries. Thanks for asking. And Brightmore says EU talking about creating an air patrol over Kiev as U.S. pulls away from Ukrainian support. Well, again, that's something I probably watch more closely than you do, Marcia. But,
Yes.
But the answer, I think, is, do they want peace or not? It's really, I think it's a good thing what President Trump did this morning was he put out on his social media, this is where things are getting decided now on social media, right? Or catching Zelensky in the video conference, wow. I mean, the public can see, at least what they want us to see, which is more than what they let us see before.
Right.
Anyway, so there you go. You've got this proposal out there that the EU is going to create, an air patrol, and they're going to beef up their militaries, and then suddenly, Germany's going to start looking like a threat in the middle of Europe again, to everybody else, because that's what history has been about. Is about who's going to be the boss of Europe. If Germany rebuilds its military, it's going to, according to Harley Schlanger and other people that know, it's going to take 10 years. So the whole idea of Europe being able to support the Zelensky regime in the Ukraine without U.S. assistance, forget about it.
I'm a little confused by EU taking in charge of this activity versus NATO. Well, maybe I just need to.
No, I mean, we can talk about it. NATO is driven by the United States.
Right.
So what Trump is doing is saying no to NATO. We're not going to do this project. And, so now there's this part of NATO, the NATO founding document called Article 5, which you might have heard about. And that says, an attack against one is an attack against all. And we all, run to the sound of the guns together. So suppose that Poland is able to entice Russia into a shooting war. Then all of Europe is going to have to jump into that war, and it's going to be World War III. And we are bound by that same treaty to jump into that war and support Europe in that treaty. So ultimately, what Trump is doing right now is he's negotiating, he's strategizing, he's triangulating. And, at some point, he may very well just say, all right, that's it. We're out of NATO. And if we leave NATO, then Europe is really, really going to be on its own.
Right. Absolutely. And that's where I'm confused, is if Europe is on its own, and, the comment was, creating an air patrol over Kyiv.
Right.
Then, but if Europe is doing that on its own, then do they have the resources to do that, is my question.
Right.
Do they have the resources to pull together as European countries versus the resources that everybody's been putting into NATO? I don't see how I haven't seen an effort, because NATO exists. There hasn't been this effort for the European NATO members to create a European defense group.
Well, that's what you can see on X a lot, because a lot of the folks that follow this stuff are posting it on X, and you have the EU led by this unelected leader named Ursula von der Leyen.
Hmm.
And she, of course, is married to a Pfizer executive, and it's
How
real.
convenient.
And she is saying now that we are now going to rearm Europe. And so she's providing leadership from
I
her
see.
perch at the top of the EU, although she hasn't been elected and she doesn't have control over the budgets of these countries. They're going to use their bully pulpit at the EU and the media to convince the people that Russia is going to, the Ruskies are coming. The Ruskies are coming. We got to.
Everyone to get from street.
Thank you. Oh, Alison. Inside jokes, guys.
Well, it's from the movie The Russians Are Coming, an old movie from my childhood.
And mine, and I loved it. Alan Arkin, and
Everyone to get from street. Sorry.
Okay, Catherine, we understand. Going down the stairs sideways makes a lot of sense, and hanging onto that rail.
Yeah, I don't do the sideways, but I always hold on to the rail.
Oh, he is going to put up a star shield now too.
Oh,
that's nice. Everybody can have their own Iron Dome. Yeah, it would be great for business. I mean, who would love that? Raytheon. Yeah, let's all have a Iron Dome everywhere.
yeah, everywhere.
Well, this is fun. Oh, Amber's here. Oh, cool.
Yay.
Amber, we're going to join you right now. Hello. Oh, I can't.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
There
we
we
can hear
go.
you now.
Do I need to scoot this back a bit? How's that? I don't know why it's so close.
There you go. You're centered. Amber Connor joins
Hi,
us.
Amber.
Hey, good morning. I'm so happy to be on a show with a husband and wife team. I think we need more of that in the world.
Well, thank you so much, and all the best to you and Chase and your two very handsome
Our
boys.
two angels.
Well, they're handsome. I don't know if they're
Angels.
angels or not.
They're pushing the limits. They're 10 and 13.
Oh, my.
So they're trying to get away with anything and everything they can. And when they get in trouble, they try every which way to, Mom, I love you so much. Mom, can I help you with something? And then they think the consequence is taken away. Like, no, you still get the consequence for what you did. And then just work on not doing it again. But Mom, I helped you just now. Okay, great. Wonderful. But you still have to deal with the consequence. And that's to teach you not to do it again. And then they'll try again and again and again. And I'm just like, I'm not giving in. I'm not a pushover. Sorry. And they're like, man. And then they try another angle and another angle. So it's funny because you want that tenacity. You want them to try to strategize and know how to debate. You want them to know how to ask for what they want and have confidence. But you also want them to understand that a consequence is a consequence. So I give a little bit of leeway, but then ultimately, no means no. I'm not going back on it because then I'm not consistent. And if I'm not consistent, you're going to keep doing something that won't serve you in the future. If you don't have good character, your boss isn't going to like you. Your wife isn't going to like you. Your friends aren't going to like you. If you're not honest, same thing. Like if you don't have these characteristics that we all have to have as an adult, and we have to understand that bad things happen if we don't have these characteristics, then I didn't do my due diligence. And I'm not here to be your friend. Be friends with your grandparents. They're here to spoil you. Wonderful. When you give me grandkids, I'll spoil them. But right now, I'm not here to be nice. I'm here
Don't
to
you
parent
wish all adults had learned that lesson growing up? Don't you think we'd have a much better world if more parents had taught their children over the years that there are consequences?
Yes. And in fact, what's really hard is when I see their grandparents spoil them and then I get jealous and I'm like, my mom never did that for me. She never. And then I'm like, wait a minute. This is how it's supposed to be. When I get grandkids, I can fill them full of ice cream. I'll make sure it's organic, non-GMO with no food coloring, or artificial ingredients, but I will fill them full of ice cream and then send them to their parents because that will be my job as a grandparent. because
That's
I'm allowing their grandparents, you know,
There you go.
that's what we do. But as a parent, you're not there to be their friend. You're there to make sure that they know how to behave, that they're a good person, and that they don't cause strife in the world. So it's not so much fun being the bad guy, but you know, you got to do what you got to do.
Well, it sounds good, and it reminds me that I wanted to ask you, because I know you put threw your hat in the ring for the Atlanta City Council, an amazing effort to become one of 5 councilors in Atlanta, and that's really a credit to you as a person that wants to do good in the world. And your attitude towards kids, I'm thinking, how would that play in the Atlanta City Council? And well, anyway, I just want you to tell us a little bit about your campaign and how things are going for you along those lines, and then we'll start adding some chat room comments along the bottom.
Yeah, so I decided to run for Atlanta City Council post 3 citywide at large, which means the districts that I would serve was 9, 10, 11, and 12. I'm in District 9. So you have to live in District 9, 10, 11, and 12 to actually run for post 3 citywide. 2 of the city council members had contacted me to let me know that Keisha Waits, who had previously been in that seat, stepped out prematurely because she wanted to run for the Atlanta City Clerk's office and she lost. So they just assumed she was going to run again or try to come back to her seat, but she didn't. She just disappeared. And it's because she was very far left and she was always arguing with the more moderates and centrists on the city council. And she was pushing for things that not even her constituents were asking for. And so she was more radical than what anyone wanted. And so she was constantly finding herself in a battle. And I think she was in over her head because those who put her in office were expecting a return that she wasn't able to deliver. And all she was getting was consternation from other people she was working with. So when she backed out, a couple of city council members called and said, you need to run. You know, you've got our support. We'll give you our email lists. We'll give you our addresses. We'll give you our head campaign donor. I'm like, okay, great. Well, needless to say, other city council members reached out to people. And so we had 5 people running. Well, the difficulty was running against 5 people. And I get along with the Black community here really well. My family and I, we live in a Black community. We're the only white family, like within a mile of where we are. And I've volunteered over here. I know a majority of the community in District 9, 10, 11, and 12. I've been outspoken. When people were pushing for defunding our police, I stood up for the Black community and said, the people who are pushing for this not only have Emory police, but they have private security and they have the APD. And they're in gated communities. And us over here, we don't have anything but the APD, who now doesn't have enough police because our mayor decided to listen to Prince Charles when he said we should just put cameras up like London has, because London is our sister city. So he didn't fulfill the police pension or give them a raise, and they were below what most police officers were paid in the United States. And even though they were the most progressive police force, in which Barack Obama praised, they were suffering losses because of management from our mayor. And so I stood up for the Black community, and I got over 900 people to call to say they didn't want to defund. And then we pushed for community policing, where we got affordable housing within Atlanta so that the police could live in the community, go to church in the community, their kids go to school within the community, so that people would see their vehicle parked within the community and build bonds within that community. And so I had grown close with a majority of people who serve at food banks, who do podcasts, and who've been active members of Atlanta for a very long time. And because I have been part of the Carter Center's Ambassador Circle, even though I disagree with some of the things that they're pushing for, I did like their helping with river blindness and guinea worm, and actually helping people who were having lots of issues, not pushing the vaccine programs, which I was against, and the Carter Center knows I'm very vocal about how I feel. But because of my connections within that, I was very much so accepted. I went to all of the the debates and went and sat with the other panelists. And afterwards, I was never treated wrong. No one came up to me and said, "Why is a white girl running?" They were all very much so appreciative. They said, "Thank you for running." They wanted to ask me just as many questions when the audience came in. They wanted to know about my past. They knew where we lived. Our kids play in the neighborhood and in the community, so they're very well aware of my stance. So I was treated wonderfully by the constituents. It was the bigger, AT&T, BlackRock, Georgia Power that had already picked their person. And so they were going to put their strategies in place. And they knew that I don't like crony capitalism. And I do like capitalism. We own our own business. However, I don't like monopolies or crony capitalism. And I pushed back against the mandate. I pushed back against the woke policies that they were pushing to cause division so that they could pretend to be someone who cared about the community, but they were caring about things that the community could not use to get a job, was not beneficial for them, in order to placate to them while not supplying the jobs that they were talking about, while not building the community that they were helping to sow division. And I was very vocal about that. So I knew they were going to come against me. But out of 5, I came in third. I got 15% of the vote, almost 16% of the vote. But it was very odd because one of the girls who came in and got into the runoff, she had been dating the mayor. The other girl had been on the school board for 11 years and was very much so okay with all the property tax raises, that it helps those bigger corporations get TADs and abatements, which allows them not to pay property taxes for 15 to 30 years, that then pushes it on the constituents. And I've been pushing back against property taxes. So of course, the bigger forces that like me, but we're not going to endorse me because they had 2 candidates that would serve them much better than I would have, because I would be standing up for the regular citizen. So, I expected that, but I also wanted to get my platform out there and talk common sense, and let people know that it doesn't matter the race that you're presenting your platform to. Is it common sense? Are you actually there for the constituents? Because it doesn't matter what culture you come from, or what race, or if you're female and you're in a room of males, what are you saying? And is it going to help the mom and pop politics? Is it going to help kitchen table issues? And I can always speak to that. So I had a wonderful time dealing with the constituents, a wonderful time dealing with just going and seeing all the different political realms and sometimes the crazy questions. And I'd say, "I'm sorry, I'm not a communist. I don't agree with that." And I would, say it, but even they would contact me and say, "Hey, can you come back for, some more questions?" And so it was wonderful to connect with people, to stay firm, to not bend, but also speak to why they were complaining. I get why you're upset, because there's not job opportunities. I get this, but let's work together so we can come up with answers. But being radical and saying, it has to be done this way, you're never going to get the things that you want, and you have to prioritize what you want. And then you have to work to change legislation, and you have to do it properly. And you have to let those who need to hear your voice, and then you have to do your part in order to make it come to be. And you can't be asking for more than you're given. It has to be equal. You give as much as you're being given. And so that's how these things work. And then, I was very much so accepted, but I wasn't their first choice, because I wasn't a socialist/communist in my belief system, but they had a lot of respect for me. They greeted me. A lot of the people who were going to be going there would hug me and say, "Oh, it's so good to see you, Amber." And "Hi, nice to see you. It's great to be here. I'm excited about the debate." "Oh yeah, me too." And so, you build camaraderie and not enemies, but they know, "Oh, she won't go for that." Like, that's not, "Oh, well, here comes her answer. She's not going to agree with us." But, that's what healthy debate is. That's what it's supposed to look like. That's what neighborhood, and that's the way it used to be. Someone wasn't threatening to cut your head off because you were a Republican or a Democrat. And that's the way it should be. And, we've lost that. So I tried to do my best to try to regain that.
So what's next?
I think I have more stamina, and I can get more done being outside of the political office right now while my kids are young, because I get to pick my schedule. I get to go to the school board when they're out of control, and speak to them. I get to, like when you're in office, you can't make you can make declarations, but you can't force an agenda or something you think is good, because then you're called a dictator. You have to actually wait for your constituents to beg for things. That's why the loudest people get their way. So when a lot of people sit at home and they're busy and they don't go and they don't lobby and they don't bring a bunch of people in to speak on it and they don't push for it, someone that may have really crazy agenda that may just really cause a lot of problems, the politicians end up listening to them. So you have to be louder, and you can get more done with pushing and lobbying as a citizen and getting more people there to come with you. And if each one of you, like if you get 12 people with you and each one of you sign up for 2 minutes to speak, great. But if 3 people don't want to speak and you're the one who gathered them there, you have them sign over their 2 minutes. And now you've got 8 minutes, and you can use
that's
8
nice that
minutes.
you can do that. You can't
Yes.
do that in our community.
Yo,
It's
that's, I
3
mean,
minutes or 2 minutes or whatever per person, and you can't turn your time over.
oh, that's great. I wonder how you guys can get that turned over, because you really need someone to set the tone. So that's
Right.
the person who needs to come up first, and they need to use that 6 minutes, 8 minutes, or at least 4 minutes to say, this is what we want. This is why. These are the problems we're seeing. These are the things we've sent you. Are you not receiving your email? Is your staff going through your email and deciding who the winners and losers are? Who are the lobbyists behind you? We're going to need to look at the money. And if you don't start listening to us, we're going to have to see who's paying you not to address your constituents that are suffering because of what you've pushed forward. And then you set that tone, and then you have each person come up after you, 2 minutes to re-emphasize. So you're ready, you come in, and if you do that often enough for the things that you want, you make it hard for them to vote against you. And you have more power as a citizen sometimes than you do as a person sitting in that seat. Now, when I'm older and my kids are older, I might run for that if I learn the ins and outs and Robert's rules in order to use those particular procedures to push forward agendas that I know are good, because I've listened to the constituents and I'm able to maneuver. Right now, I'm a little green on that, but I know what it's like to be a citizen, and I know what it's like to push for things that we all need. So right now, that's up in the air whether I'm going to run again. However, I made connections that are super important, and I have the ears
Nice.
of people that I can get them on my side. So if I see something where both the left and right side of the aisle can come together to push for an agenda, I'm going to utilize that, because now I can contact all those groups and get them all there, get them riled up, and let's go. So
That's so
that's what,
fantastic. Yeah, yeah. Good for you for being so engaged. It's very hard because right now there are so many issues in front of the people, and the issues are local, the issues are at the state level, and of course the issues at the federal level. And it's very difficult to stretch your focus over all of those things. And here in the state of Maryland, we have massive budget issues. And so what the state has decided is, well, what we're going to do is we're going to fix our budget by turning over some of this responsibility to the counties. So suddenly the counties, and in our county, we have a small county of only about 180,000 people. So, but yet we're in the Washington, D.C. metro. So we're an expensive county with, 60,000 households to pay taxes and cover those costs.
Yeah.
And about 65% of our workforce commuting out. To work in other jurisdictions. So the budget at our county level is a real challenge already anyway. And then to have the state, but how do you keep up with it all? Because there's so much going on. So good for you, Amber, for getting involved and for staying engaged and for recognizing the value of speaking for constituents, because so many people get into office and immediately become loyal to the big money that is funding their campaigns. I mean, we have an issue here locally in again, in the state of Maryland, because in Maryland, you can't buy alcohol in grocery stores. And really the reason, it's not that you can't buy alcohol in grocery stores, you can only get one license. So if you are a Food Lion, you can sell in one of your Food Lion stores throughout the whole state of Maryland. And so therefore, most grocery stores don't sell. But we have trouble attracting grocery stores for that reason. And we have a lot of food deserts. But yet the liquor store owners fight changing that legislation, and they're very powerful. And all of us would like to be able to go to the grocery store. Well, I don't say us because John and I don't drink, but people in general want to be able to go to the grocery store and pick up their food and their beer or their wine all in one place. And it would help the grocery stores be more profitable so that we can get more of the, especially the high-end grocery stores or the good grocery stores. But our local officials are indebted to those who are financing their campaigns. And that doesn't serve the needs of the constituents. So, in listening to you talk, Amber, and you're just going on about how important it is to you to serve and listen to and to represent the constituents. Bravo, or brava, I should say. Good for you.
What I found out that was super interesting was how you get donations, right? And how particular people, like, let's say I call a vacuum company. This is an example. The CEO of a vacuum company, and that vacuum company needs someone in office so they can make sure their vacuums are sold to those government buildings so that anybody or any janitor that's working in there is using theirs, and they will do a contract with them to supply. So it's all about how do you exploit something to benefit your business. So there's a balance there. You want everyone to be able to put a contract in, but you don't want for someone to be hinging all of their, hey, Amber will help me push forward my contract so I can sell vacuum cleaners. If there's like 12 other vacuum cleaner companies, right? So if I give them an unfair advantage because they got me in office, then I'm not following the, the stated way that you're supposed to address these contracts. You're supposed to look at them. You're supposed to see what their bottom line is, how much the cost will be, how much the overhead will be,
Right.
what you're responsible for. Are you going to have to replace the equipment? Are they? How long is the contract for? And then you dwindle it down. And then you're supposed to get mutual benefit where their cost has beat the other cost. However, their reputation is of high standard. Their people are licensed. So you're going through your law department. You're finding out, like, who are our top 3 contenders out of 12. Now let's bring them in. Now let's see where they can save us money. We can save them money. Let's then interview all 3 and pick the best package, and then actually have a B package and a C package for areas of the government that we don't oversee, but that need a vacuum company. And we say, okay, we're not going to send our pick for this, to other counties or to other areas, but we will take B and C, who we did not choose, and send them to DeKalb County. Hey, you might want to check out their contracts. Hey, to Polk County, you might want to check out there and find out where are they willing to travel? What are they willing to do? Because they came in second or third, we want to make sure, because we were able to dwindle from 12 to 3 and they were the top contenders, we want to make sure that they're in the pile of contracts, and we want to give a letter of high recommendation to how they had made it to the top 3. Like, I think that's a better way to handle it, so that that if you come in the top 3, you have a possibility of getting a good contract because you had the business acumen. You had that personality, and you worked within those rules and laws and codes that put you in that top 3 contender, and that there is a benefit because there's other connections that can be made, even if it's within the private industry. Let's say that Chick-fil-A gives a lot of donations to Atlanta City Hall when it comes to particular events. Well, we might say number 2 and number 3 here, we're going to send your business offer to Chick-fil-A. These type of things that might be beneficial. These are ways that we need to look at lobbying, and we need to look at making it fair instead of nepotism and whoever pays the most money and whoever gets that person in office. And, these ideas that I have and that I talk about makes other people cringe because they have their particular way of doing it. And then they get uncomfortable because what does that mean? Who's going to donate to them? How are they going to win? So it's hard to get the legislators to change it.
The public sector, the private sector, the businesses have totally dominated our politics, as we have seen, especially on the national level. That's who everybody is working for. They're not going to take care of us. They're going to take care of, and that's something that, John, that you've talked about so many times over the years, is how the interests of the corporations are what runs government. And it's what Amber's saying, it just goes to show you it's at all levels. It's not just the federal level.
And even if you like the business and they're really kind and they give you a moderate, a donation, it's really hard as someone who just got that donation to be like, well, I'm not going to help you. Like, this is, you feel it's a weird feeling. And I remember sitting there going, I'm running for office to win, but I'm also running in office to figure out why our elected officials buckle. What is it psychologically and emotionally that happens to them that turns them into being more beholden to their donors than to their constituents? And so I really felt that tug. I was sitting there thinking, this person gave me $1,280. And wow, when they call me, I need to pick up the phone. When they ask me a question, I need to answer them immediately. And I felt this tug a lot. And then I'd have to say, okay, this isn't about favoritism. They felt in their heart to give you this much. There were no strings attached. You didn't promise anything. You'll get back to them just like you'll get back to everyone else. And you will give them attention just like you'll do everyone. But there is a pull. There is a pull.
Absolutely.
And I dove into what I was experiencing so I could understand what our elected officials are experiencing so I could speak to that. If I were to write them or communicate with them, what would I touch on? Because I have felt those feelings before and I would know how to maybe psychologically or linguistically approach the subject that may
Absolutely.
make them
But
hear
and I
me
think,
better.
at the federal level, when we are talking millions and millions and millions of dollars, then the pull is going to be there. And I think that even if they don't say it, it's understood. It's understood. I mean, Mr. Trump, he does a lot of things right. And, right now, I'm somebody who is feeling a little bit optimistic about some of the things that he's doing, but I don't pretend that he isn't beholden to a lot of money that has come his way. And that's just the way the system works. And, one of the things that I have said to you, John, many, many times is that, the only way you're going to get the money out of the system is to get the money out of the system and say, everybody has this little bit of money. Here's a pool of money and everybody gets to share it, to use it for their campaigns. And you can't spend any more than that little pool of money. You take no donations. It's the only way to make democracy really work, I think, so that the elected officials are working for the people and not for the corporations. But I don't know. What do you think, John?
Well, of course, what I'd like to do is go back to the front porch candidates, before the Civil War, when the people throwing their hat in to be the president did not go out asking for donations or anything like that. They didn't travel around the country trying to, glad hand people or anything. They just put out, their platform and their character, and they ran on their character. And once money comes in, whether it's corporate money or some Howard Hughes behind the scenes personal money, it's still money. And that is what you're trying to get rid of, is the god of money, Mammon, running everything. And isn't it true?
Mammon?
So, yeah, Mammon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Some people call it Mammon, some people call it Mammon, but it just means like that hidden entity that takes all your time, all your loyalty, all your love, because you're beholden to it. And that's the first and foremost thing and last thing you think of when you wake up and you go to bed, and it becomes your whole entirety and how you conduct your way of life is to, like, you're worshiping Mammon rather than God. It's that.
Got it.
My Baptist preacher used to speak about that a lot. So as a kid, I was like, what? And my dad was like, you either put God first or money. It's very simple. Don't make it more complicated. That's how he would answer me. Unless it was about history, because he was a history teacher. And then he'd go on and on and on for hours about history.
The rule of gold or the golden rule. I think that's where we have to decide,
Exactly.
which one are you going to live by?
Mm-hmm.
Trump's. Let's take a few of our kind listeners here who have some comments. Brightmore says Trump signed executive order making English official language of U.S. I don't have any problem with that.
It's always been unofficial, and making it official.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
it doesn't mean we're not allowed to speak other languages. Let's hope we do. But yeah, English is their primary language.
Wouldn't it be funny if he called it "We Speak American"? That way, it wasn't given over to the British like
Oh
England.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
I saw a
good
meme about that, and I was like, "Oh
Oh,
yeah."
I think that has legs, Amber. That's a good idea. The American
We
language.
speak American, not English. English is British. No, but it cracks me up.
Actually, I like that because there is such a big difference. You know, you don't think there is, and you certainly, you know, when we understand them, but you know, yeah, American. We speak American.
There's our friend Rick Olson checking in. Rick just conquered a surgical problem, and he's come back strong, playing
Yay.
piano and doing duets with George Webb. So good for you, Rick. So glad to hear from you today. And of course, our friend Corky's here. Our hood is extremely diverse, he says. Amber, a real leader. I agree.
Inspired.
Let's see.
Absolutely.
Trump's going to be the chairman of the Kennedy Center board. I don't know about that. Come on, Donald.
There is such an interesting backstory about that. Can I
Yeah,
touch on that? I know that time is,
that's good.
you know,
No, it's
but
an interesting
it is an
subject.
interesting backstory that when Biden came in, one of Trump's former associates, he was the press secretary when Trump was first elected in 2016. Begins with an S, his name, and I can't come up with it. Anyway,
Sean Spicer?
yes, Sean Spicer was named to a Naval Academy Board of Advisors. That Trump did that right before he left office in 2020. Well, Biden came in and immediately kicked him off this board, as well as anybody else who had been named by Trump, and brought in his own people. Well, Sean Spicer sued, and it went to court, and he knew he was going to lose. And so it went to court, and sure enough, he lost. And the courts ruled that the president can do this. So then 4 years later, Biden on his way out names all these people to various boards, including the Kennedy Center board. Trump comes in and does the exact same thing, and nobody can do anything about it because Sean Spicer took it to court and confirmed that it's allowed. So they, you know, when he took over the Kennedy Center like that, and I'm sure many other boards, that he did the same thing, it's already gone to court and been determined. It's an interesting backstory.
Whoa, that is super cool. And you know, I know people have gone back and forth with whether they're happy that RFK is in. I am happy. I think it looks like good leadership when you have people that are representing both sides of the aisle that come together to try to address issues, especially when it comes to health, especially with the trauma that everyone's gone through for the last 4 or 5 years, and just the manipulations and just the craziness. The fact that he was willing to reach out and across the aisle and actually say, hey, you know what? We'll take Tulsi, we'll take RFK, anyone who has been hurt or knocked down because they weren't the chosen, right? You know what? Let's work together. Let's make America the way that it's supposed to be. I was rather pleased because you rarely see that camaraderie that actually, that's what causes peace. That's what causes, you know, a healthy nation, because we're not all going to see eye to eye. And if we see that example and that representation of what it looks like for people who have two different philosophies, finding where they mesh well together in order to heal our country, so that each side of the aisle has somebody to go, hey, my person's in there, so that it relaxes them a bit and they don't feel like, oh my gosh, it's someone with a totally different philosophy. What are they going to do? And they're not on high alert and they don't believe malarkey all the time because it just comes through their feed. They're like, I don't know. And they really look into it because they feel an attachment somewhat to that administration. I think it's important to build those bridges, even though we don't want, you know, a uniparty. We don't want that manipulation to take place where it's not for our own good. It's not for, you know, it's a game or manipulation, but when it's actually a crossover and you can actually see, well, RFK didn't want to be on the plane eating McDonald's when President Trump's doing that, but he's sitting there with a look like, well, everybody knows that I'm not going to eat this stuff, but here you go. So it's like everyone gets a big kick out of it, but everyone's happy their person is in there, if that makes sense.
And also, I got to say, science is not an exact science. And everybody acts, or at least some people act, as if it is. And in fact, I believe that there is a march today downtown in Washington, D.C., in support of science. And I think it has more to do with people from NIH being laid off or people from various agencies.
No, Noah.
But NOAA, yes.
Yeah.
But the fact is, science is not an exact science, and there are different interpretations of the information that is out there. And a lot of it has to do with interpretation. So, you can't just criticize RFK Jr. for looking at the other sides of science.
Well, one thing that I think people they lose sight of is there's a lot of propaganda out there. For instance, I was just happening on X, and I'm going through and I'm looking and I see this post and I'm like, why is this in my feed? I don't even follow this person, but this person's Canadian and they own a toilet company, and they're like, oh my gosh, these tariffs. And I'm like, wait. So I scroll, and I'm looking and I read the comments, and what I find out is even though Trump pulled back on the tariffs, he hasn't put tariffs on Canada yet. Trudeau is lying to his people. He already added those tariffs that Trump said he was going to add in order to punish his people, so he could tell everybody, look what Trump's doing, because he knows his people won't have access to the fact and have no idea, because the way they work their algorithms, that they can trick a majority of the people into being angry and hating America and going against Trump because their prices have gone up exponentially because Trudeau is making a killing right now on these particular tariffs. Extorting money from his own people by saying they're Trump's tariffs when they're actually Trudeau's, because Trump hasn't put those tariffs in place. And people are believing it. So this guy puts out there the real information. And even people who are reading it and seeing documentation were still arguing with him, like they couldn't believe that Trudeau would actually charge these tariffs, even though we're not charging the tariffs yet. Like it's on hold. And that's the kind of manipulation that people fall for. And so, they're willing to, boo America and, say, oh, well, you know what? We'll forget about you. These things seem to happen all the time. It's crazy.
What happened to my camera?
That
was weird.
Has a mind of its own, I guess.
It does.
Well, good gracious. It's noon already.
Wow.
And what a pleasure it is, Amber, to have you, and really enjoyed you and Marcia getting back together, because you both have a lot of experience in local government and the issues that a lot of people are suffering from, but can't understand how to work through them. And so it really, really helps. And for your campaign and all you do for Atlanta and your particular community, I say bravo, and here's a round of applause for you.
Thank you. And I'm so glad that you're doing a podcast now with your wife. I think you guys make an amazing team.
Oh, thank you.
And I really like seeing when husband and wives work together, whether it's in business or on TV. I just think that there's a particular spark. And since there's already a deep connection, it's smooth, it works well, and you can play off each other. And I think, our world is missing a lot of that. And I think it's very necessary. So thanks for being a great example.
Thanks, Amber.
Amber Connor, thank you again. And we'll be back Monday. I'll be giving minefields on number 4 on my Saxa series. So we'll go through that new Air Force article that everybody's talking about, and General Leroy Manor, and all the details that are behind the scenes. I'll be working on it on the weekend, and we'll present it on Monday at 11.
And don't forget to spring ahead.
Oh, yeah.
Spring ahead. Okay.
I forgot already.
All right. Well, our Osprey are on their way back home too, and we'll be seeing them hopefully next week. Bye-bye now.
Thanks, everyone.